There is a very special moment in a human life, yet few people truly recognize it. It is not the moment of great success, nor the moment when loss or collapse occurs. It is the moment when we stand still at the boundary between 2 years, where time is no longer a number, but becomes a quiet question whispering in our consciousness, how will I live from here? 2026 does not arrive like a miracle. It does not carry a promise that all difficulties will disappear, that life will become easier, or that pain will never return. But 2026 carries something far more precious, a chance for awakening. A chance for you not to repeat the same way of living, the same patterns of thinking, the same exhausting cycle that has silently worn you down for years. Many people step into the new year with a long list of goals. Earn more money. Be more successful. Be stronger. Be better in the eyes of others. Yet after only a few months, they return to the very same starting point, still busy. Still anxious, still feeling an emptiness they cannot name. Because they try to change the surface, while the roots of life have never truly been touched. The truth is, the best year of your life is not determined by what you achieve, but by who you become. And that person is not shaped by forced effort, but by the moments when you are brave enough to look directly at yourself. Perhaps you have spent years living very correctly, but not quite living truly. You do what should be done, follow paths considered safe, carry expectations that were never chosen by you. You smile when you are supposed to smile, you try when you are supposed to try, but deep inside, a part of you is still whispering, am I living, or am I just existing? If that question has ever arisen within you, even once, then 2026 is not a random year. It is an invitation. An invitation to return to a simplicity that has been forgotten. An invitation to slow down in a world that is constantly rushing. An invitation to listen to the inner voice, instead of endlessly chasing the noise outside. Because a meaningful year does not begin with doing more, but with living more deeply. It does not begin with trying to become someone else, but with daring to let go of the masks that have covered your true self for too long. Be honest with yourself, how many times have you said, "It will be fine," while your heart was exhausted? How many times have you told yourself, "Just try a little more," even when you were already drained? And how many dreams have been set aside simply because you thought, later? Time does not take away our youth. Unawareness does. When we live without presence, when we let days pass by as habit, when we trade inner peace for approval, that is, when we truly lose ourselves. 2026 could be the year you wake up each morning without a heaviness in your heart. It could be the year you learn to say no to what drains you, and say yes to what nourishes your soul. It could be the year you no longer live to prove anything to anyone, but begin to live to understand yourself more, care for yourself more, and be more fully present. But that only happens if you pause long enough to see a simple truth. You do not need to become perfect to have a wonderful year. You only need to become awake. Awake to how you spend your time. Awake to the relationships you maintain. Awake to the repetitive thoughts that are quietly guiding your life. When awakening appears, life does not necessarily become easier, but it becomes clearer. And when things are clear, you are no longer swept away unconsciously. You begin to choose. You begin to live with presence. You begin to feel meaning even in the smallest things. 2026 does not need to be the most spectacular year. It only needs to be the most truthful one. The year you stop running from silence. The year you have the courage to stay with yourself. The year you understand that peace is not found at the destination, but in the way you walk. And perhaps, if you are hearing these words, then deep within you, you are already ready. Ready not to become a better version in the eyes of the world, but a more whole version within your own life. 2026 is very close. And the question is not what it will bring to you, but rather, what will you bring of yourself into that year? When we speak of turning 2026 into the best year of our lives, it does not begin with grand actions, but with a very subtle shift in how we look at life. Not a change in outer circumstances, but a change in our inner grounding. Because it is the same world, the same turbulence, yet when consciousness changes, the lived experience becomes completely different. Most human suffering does not come from what is happening, but from how we resist what is happening. We do not hurt because of difficulties, but because we want them to disappear. We are not tired because of work, but because of the fear of not being good enough. We do not suffer because of loneliness, but because of the belief that we should not be lonely. It is this silent resistance that keeps the mind tense, that turns life into a series of days to be endured rather than truly lived. If 2026 is the year you learn how to stop being in conflict with yourself, then it is already a very worthwhile year. Living without opposition does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It is a deep understanding that there are things that can only be transformed through allowing, not forcing. When you allow yourself to be sad without self-blame, sadness naturally settles. When you allow yourself to be tired without judgment, exhaustion gradually dissolves. When you allow yourself not to know, wisdom finally has space to appear. We have grown accustomed to living as if we always need to fix ourselves. To be better. To be stronger. To be more positive. But few are taught that peace does not come from becoming someone else, but from stopping the rejection of who we already are. When rejection ends, a very gentle energy appears, the energy of acceptance. And it is precisely this energy that becomes the foundation for all sustainable change. 2026 could be the year you no longer take your value from productivity. You no longer measure yourself by how much you did today, what you achieved, or how you were recognized. Instead, you begin to measure life by the degree of presence. Are you truly there during a meal? In a conversation? In the very ordinary moments of daily life? Because life does not unfold in big milestones. It unfolds in each small moment that we often overlook. A quiet morning upon waking. A deep breath in the middle of a busy day. A moment when you realize you are rushing unnecessarily. These things, when seen, will gradually change the way you live. Many people believe they need more motivation to change their lives. But what we truly need is not motivation, but clarity. When you clearly see that a way of living is draining you, you will naturally move away from it. When you clearly see that a relationship is causing you to lose yourself, you will no longer cling to it. Profound change does not need noise. It happens in the quietness of understanding. If 2026 is the year you learn to live slowly without feeling guilty, then you have already come a very long way. Slow does not mean falling behind. Slow means being awake enough not to be swept away. Slow means knowing when to stop before the mind creates unnecessary suffering. In that slowness, you will begin to hear what noise once covered up. You will hear what your body needs. You will hear where your mind is tired. And you will hear a very gentle truth: you do not need to run anymore. We have lived too long in a state of almost there. Almost happy. Almost okay. Almost finished. But real life is always here. In this moment. And when you keep bypassing the present to wait for an ideal future, you unknowingly miss your own life. 2026 could be the year you stop postponing life. Stop postponing rest. Stop postponing authenticity. Stop postponing the return to your deepest values. There will be days in that year that are not easy at all. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. But unlike before, you no longer see these as failures. You begin to see them as a natural part of the journey. No path of awakening is completely smooth. But there are paths which, though rough, still carry a sense of rightness and depth. And when you live in alignment with yourself, something very strange happens. You are no longer so afraid of the future. Because you know that, whatever happens, you still have the capacity to stay with yourself. That is a very quiet strength, but one that nothing can shake. Perhaps by the end of 2026, you will not have more than you do now. But you will be lighter, clearer, less in conflict with yourself. And sometimes, that is the greatest success a human being can achieve in a lifetime. The old year has passed, but its aftershocks still linger in the memories of many people. Floods that swept away homes, prolonged droughts that cracked the land, storms that tore through not only villages but also the fragile sense of human trust. Natural disasters do not only destroy the outer landscape. They strike directly at the deepest sense of safety within us, the feeling that life itself is far more fragile than we once believed. When facing such a turbulent year, many people ask, what can I do? The world feels too vast. The problems feel too big. Does one small individual really matter? But there is a truth we often forget: the world does not change first through great events. It changes through the way people live after those events. Natural disasters remind us that human beings do not stand apart from nature. We are not conquerors, but part of the flow. When we live as if we are separate, consuming unconsciously, extracting without restraint, chasing convenience without regard for consequences, sooner or later that imbalance returns, not as punishment, but as a wake-up call. Therefore, to live better in 2026, the first thing is not to do something grand, but to live more consciously in very small ways. Conscious of how we consume. Conscious of how we use resources. Conscious of how we treat the environment around us. No one needs you to become a perfect environmentalist. But if you begin to pause before each choice and ask, is this truly necessary? Then you have already begun to change. When millions of people slow down just a little, consume a little less, and appreciate a little more, the world naturally breathes more easily. But changing the world is not only about the outer environment. The world is largely chaotic because human beings are chaotic within. Tension, fear, competition, and division in individual minds, when multiplied, become collective instability. If 2026 is the year you learn to live more gently with yourself, then you are also helping to soften the world. What does it mean to be gentle with yourself? It means not abusing yourself with unrealistic expectations. It means not seeing exhaustion as weakness. It means allowing yourself to rest without feeling guilty. An exhausted person unintentionally spreads that exhaustion to others. A peaceful person, even in silence, spreads peace. You do not need to do anything for the world before you learn how not to cause more harm to yourself and to others. After years of upheaval, what the world needs is not more voices, but more listening. Listening to others' pain without rushing to judge. Listening to differences without immediately resisting. Listening even to the collective fears quietly flowing beneath debates. When you learn to listen deeply, you are no longer easily pulled into division as before. You begin to see that behind every harsh reaction lies an untouched fear. And when fear is seen, violence, whether through words or actions, gradually loses its ground. Changing life to change the world is not about becoming more right, but about becoming more awake. Awake enough to recognize when you are reacting instead of understanding. Awake enough to pause before speaking words that cause further harm. Awake enough to stop feeding resentment simply because it feels familiar. 2026 could be the year you choose to live more kindly, not out of morality, but from a deep understanding that all connections return to yourself. When you plant gentleness, you create a safer environment, not only for others, but for your own inner world. The world is already too tired of people who always want to win. What it needs are people who know how to stop. Stop before over-extracting. Stop before consuming more. Stop before hurting one another just to protect the ego. And perhaps your greatest contribution to the world in 2026 is not changing others, but becoming someone in whose presence others feel safe. Safe to be themselves. Safe to drop their defenses. Safe to be heard. When enough people live this way, the world will not need to be fixed. It will naturally recalibrate, like a body return to its inherent balance. The old year showed us what happens when human beings forget connection. The new year invites us to remember the opposite. Every great change begins with a small, awakened consciousness. And perhaps, that is how 2026 becomes a better year, not only for you, but for the entire world of which you are a part. That if there is one thing that years of upheaval have taught us, it is this. No external change is truly sustainable if the inner human being remains old and unchanged. We can revise laws, rebuild cities, develop technology, but if human consciousness still operates from fear, craving, and unawareness, then suffering only changes its form, it does not disappear. Therefore, the path to living better does not begin with doing more, but with living differently. Living differently first means daring to look back at ourselves, not to blame, but to understand. To understand why we are always rushing. To understand why we get angry so easily. To understand why we feel exhausted even when we have not done anything particularly demanding. When you truly observe your own life, you will realize that most of your energy is leaking into repetitive thoughts, anxieties that have never happened, and expectations that are never fulfilled. Changing for the better does not mean becoming someone else. It means stopping the habit of living unconsciously. You can begin very simply. By noticing how you start your day. What state of mind do you wake up in? Rushed or aware? Do you reach for your phone first, or do you touch your own breath first? Just one small change in the morning, such as a few minutes of silence, a few deep breaths, can change the entire rhythm of a day. When you change the rhythm of your life, you change the way you are present. And when you are more fully present, you begin to live responsibly with each moment. Living responsibly does not mean carrying more pressure. It means understanding that every word, every action, every choice leaves a trace. When you speak a gentle word, the world becomes a little gentler. When you choose not to react with anger, the world contains one less seed of violence. These changes may be very small, but they are the quiet bricks that rebuild the foundation of a society exhausted by tension. One of the deepest changes you can make in 2026 is to learn how to take responsibility for your emotional life. Not blaming circumstances. Not unloading your insecurity onto others. Not demanding that the world be easier so that you do not have to grow. When you are mature enough to stay with your own emotions, you no longer need to hurt others to find release. And when people stop hurting one another, even within a very small scope, the world has already begun to change. Living better also means knowing when to stop. Stopping before exhaustion. Stopping before saying words you will later regret. Stopping before chasing something that, deep inside, you know is not truly necessary. In a society that constantly encourages more, faster, stronger, knowing how to stop is a very courageous act. When you stop, you begin to see clearly. And when you see clearly, you are no longer easily led by collective fear. You no longer live just to compare. You no longer use other people's lives as the measure of your own worth. 2026 can be the year you choose to live kindly as a daily practice, not as a slogan. Kind when no one is watching. Kind when there is no obvious benefit. Kind because you understand that whatever you plant in this life, you will live within that very thing. And perhaps most importantly, changing for the better is not a solitary path. When you listen to deep sharings, when you read sincere comments, when you allow yourself to learn from other perspectives, you are participating in a shared current of awakening. Each person here, if together we slow down. Live more deeply, live more consciously, then this channel becomes more than a place to watch videos, it becomes a space that nourishes consciousness. If, while listening, a thought touches you, or an emotion causes you to pause, leave a comment. Not to debate, but to share your own truth. Because it is very possible that someone reading will recognize themselves in it and no longer feel alone. And if you feel that the content here helps you slow down, understand yourself more deeply, and look at life with gentler eyes, then subscribing to the channel is not just clicking a button. It is a quiet commitment to yourself, that you choose to nurture awareness, rather than continue drifting in unawareness. The world does not need you to become someone great. It only needs you to become a person who is awake, kind, and present. And if enough people choose that path, then 2026 will not only be a better year for any one individual, but a gentle yet profound shift for all of humanity.